like him because he began to empower, men in some aspects. And obviously he said some things that were, a little extra, but at the same time, he was
Yeah.
exposing, what I mean? Yeah, but he was exposing a lot of corruption. He was exposing a lot of things. And all of a sudden he's a mob boss running a prostitute sex trafficking ring with all these women. And it's just like, whoa, what, and
Yeah.
and think about it, they took his brother to jail. I mean, all of that kind of stuff, off of these charges that now
Here's the
have that.
thing: if you have the, I feel like if they had the concrete proof, Andrew Tate would be in jail right now. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like he's not. It's not. These people are not untouchable. He's not like a billionaire. You know what I'm saying? Like he is not even at the top of the food chain when it comes to people that have money, power, and influence. Right. However, they don't have enough to put him away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And somebody who has, if you built an empire, if you built that wealth strictly on human trafficking, and you're that much into the public, I mean, you're on Instagram
Right.
all the time, you're on
Right.
TikTok all the time,
Right.
you're on every platform
Right.
all the time, they'll find out. If Trump had done everything that everyone had said he did, they'd find it. He's the most looked into person in
Yeah.
recent history.
On the planet. Yeah.
The
I
absolute
mean,
100% most looked into.
must see TV.
Do I think he's squeaky clean? Fuck no. Not a chance. Not a
Right.
chance.
Yeah.
Would I vote for him again? Probably not. I had a great 4 years. It was fun watching him do what he does. I'm ready to have a real leader in the country. So if we could just have one fucking legitimate person win the next election, that would be fantastic. That would be
Right.
great for me, because I love my country. I bled for it.
Right. Right.
I would really, really, really like it to, to fix itself. But using all that as political weapons isn't helping the cause. And all that does is go back into all that does is go back into using that to divide the country because they know Trump is a divisive,
Right.
they know he's a
Right.
divisive element right now. So they're going to harp on it.
Well,
They don't want to harp on the current president. They don't want to harp on Biden because he's too easy. Like you
right.
see, and like even the people who voted for him are, it's a very weak argument. They're like, well, at least he's not Trump.
Right.
Really? You sure
Right.
about
That's a
that?
weak argument.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
sure about
That's not a
that?
strong argument. Yeah.
You feeling really good about that hand you threw down?
Like,
I actually watched a really good video where they were talking about that Donald Trump in that election won the in-person vote in every single state that he ran in. All 50 states, he won the in-person vote.
but the
Do you know who
mail-in
won the
ballot.
mail-in vote? Biden won the mail-in vote
Right.
in every single state.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
So
weird.
that
That
I'm gonna go
definitely. That.
I'm gonna go find that article and I'm gonna send it to you when we
Yeah.
get off of
Please.
here. But that for me, that's enough for me to look at it. Now, I can't sit here and say that the election was stolen. I don't have any evidence. I don't have any proof. But what
Right.
I do have is I'm watching, just enough people that you talk to. I'm like, did really that many people mail in their votes?
Right.
There's just too many,
Well. Yeah. Well.
inconsistencies that I
Well.
see.
There's a documentary that was, and everybody's got their. I mean, honestly, the whole election thing is kind of like, all right. I mean, we could go back and forth about whether that's real or not because there's so much.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because every election there's some level of fraud. I mean, that's not like a new thing, but I think the grand scale made it very. There was a lot of questions about it, right? Like I was telling somebody the other day, somebody asked me, said, okay, well, why wouldn't he just turn over, right? Just turn over the election, like it's over, you lost, get over it, whatever the case is. And I always pose this argument. I say, okay, so if I walked up to you and handed you a glass of water and said, go ahead and drink it so we can, go about our day, right? If I hand you a glass of water and then you look at the glass and you look at and it's a little foggy, right? So, you know what I'm saying? It's got a little something in it. And I say, wait, hold on, I ain't finna drink that.
Yeah.
And you're looking at me like, what's wrong with you? Why won't you drink the water? Everybody else did. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
else up to this point has drank this glass. What's the problem? I'm looking at this glass and it's not clear. Now, whether it's just a dirty glass or the water's dirty, either way, I don't have to drink this. And so I tell people, I say that's the reason why, regardless of whether you like it, agree with it, or disagree with it, that's the reason why I have a right not to drink the glass. And essentially, the glass they were trying to tell Trump, he didn't want to drink it because he felt like the glass was dirty. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just what it is. Now, whether he's right, wrong, indifferent, backwards.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you what is interesting. Side note, I had to find the article, and I don't know how true it is, and I'm going to be honest, but I saw an article recently. They were saying that I think Fannie Willis or the lady in Georgia, the prosecutor that's supposed to be trying to indict Trump. So from my understanding, in the process of them investigating and getting all their evidence together, whatever case is, they have opened up some Pandora's boxes, and apparently they found out that Fannie Willis, was involved in some type of election fraud scandal or something like that. And it was like, so now you're like, wow, you talk about the irony that the person that is prosecuting the former president for election fraud and whatnot is named in another investigation that's talking about an election fraud scandal. So, and I don't, like I said, I can't verify that yet. I'm still doing some, digging on it to see how true it is. But the fact that this is where we are, it's like, you're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy. When the reality is the country's falling apart. People don't know what they're going to do. Schools are a joke. Infrastructure's a joke. Globally, we've lost all respect. We have no type of relations or anything like that. And the economy's not getting better. People's pockets are getting worse. We got issues. And, oh, by the way, the world is on fire. Now, whether you agree that's from climate change, you agree that's from the government climate change, whatever you want to call it, whether it's project operation, whatever, or it's just regular daily activities. Either way, we got a whole lot of fish to fry, and I think we're too worried about. We're too focused on what's going on outside.
Well,
What I mean?
I tell people all the time when I'm overseas, I don't even watch American news. I usually watch Al Jazeera or BBC because the way the rest of the world looks at the United States is like with all this disdain. Africa. We were supposed to talk about Africa all the time a couple weeks ago, but I mean, I don't know if anybody really knows what's going on in Africa, but essentially, like a lot of these African nations are like, hey, we're tired of being raped by the West for all of our minerals, and we're probably the poorest, one of the shittiest continents, but they have the most resources.
Right.
And so now finally they're standing up and being like, hey, suck it, West. And now the West is all mad about that. So now you're probably going to see a lot of things go on in Africa. You're probably going to see some regime changes overnight.
Right.
You're probably going to see you're probably going to see troops. I mean, there's already troops there. I know for a fact that there's special forces from probably half the countries in the West that operate in Africa just because of the war on terror. But they're basically, I forgot what the name of the one African leader that basically said, he's like, if you guys want our resources, come here, bring your money here. Bring your factories. You want coal, come mine our coal, but build the factories here and hire our people. You want diamonds, come mine our diamonds, but build your factories here and pay our people. If you want our oil, if you want our whatever other, I know they have a shit ton of resources there. Hell yeah, absolutely. I think 100% they should be doing that.
Yeah, Africa is reclaiming their sovereignty.
Yeah.
I mean, they're reclaiming.
100%.
They're standing up and saying, nah, the rest of the world, y'all ain't finna just come up in here and just take everything you want. That ain't gonna happen no more. I mean, it just everything down to like cocoa, like chocolate. You know what I mean? Like they're the leading provider of that too. So don't be surprised if your Hershey bar is $10. You know what I mean? Like they say, like, and I think it's awesome that the African nations are beginning to say, hey, check this out. We are legitimate nations just like y'all. We're not bending and bowing and breaking to what you got going on. We're not going to go to this agenda that you all are pushing. We're not going to do what you want. We're going to do what we want and what's in the best interest of our people. And I think that's great. I mean, I think they, once again, like you said, they're the continent that has the most resources on the planet, but have been in one of the worst economic and political situations. And obviously that's a combination of course, the influence in the hands, and everybody got their hands in the country, but it's also some corruption within the government. Of course, we know that that's an issue. Now, it's funny you say that. I actually had recently met a guy from South Africa, and he was talking about the government, and he was talking about what all is going on over there. And it's interesting because so he was coming in, he was speaking about some of the racial tension and all of those things going on in Africa, and especially in South Africa. But what's so interesting is that he was speaking, a lot of the things he was saying was very similar to the Black American argument, right? Here in America, right? Being black in America, and oppression and so on and so forth, and losing jobs to pay for this, and so on and so. But what's so interesting about that was he was white, right? He was a white South African. They call him an African or Afrikaan.
Yeah,
I said I'm not an
I
expert in.
think it's Afrikaan.
Yeah,
I remember that
Afrikaan,
term. Yeah,
right? And so
I
he's a
remember that term,
white
and I'm pretty
African.
sure that's it.
He was a poor white African, born in South of Africa and stuff like that. And he was talking about how he's in a position now where they're taking their jobs, they're taking all of their resources and things like that, and giving it to these other African people. You know what I'm saying? Because basically you ain't African, so you can't have this farm no more.
Yeah,
My father, my great great grandfather, lived on this land, and so it ain't yours. And so they're taking like farmland, and they're taking. I mean, he said I don't know anything about that. He said I was born and raised on this
here.
farm for
Yeah,
my family been here for generations, but they're now going and taking a lot of the land and resources and buildings and property, like they're taking it all away from the white South Africans and giving it to or seizing it by the government,
yeah,
or the jobs. A lot of the jobs, like they're doing like this modified affirmative action kind of thing. So they want to get more African and women and so on and so forth. And so, but what they're doing is, instead of it being where it's like a vetting process, apparently, according to what he was saying, is that they're actually openly saying we're giving this job to African women, and
yeah.
we're not going to even consider you because you're white.
Well, I think at a certain point, how do I approach this? At a certain point, like I can definitely, especially when it comes to Africa, I can look at it and say, like, if you want to talk about colonization, like Africa is one of the places that is still suffering from colonization.
Right,
If you want to make the argument that the United States is suffering from colonization, you're gonna have to sit down at the table and explain that to
right,
me. But Africa, on the other hand, is only very recently completely gotten out of the thumb of actual colonization.
right,
Um, and a lot of changes have happened. So I think that you're going to see growing pains as they become their own nations, right?
right,
I'm not condoning what they're doing,
right,
but I understand what they're doing,
right,
if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because I think as a human race, in order for us to move forward, some of the shit that has happened in the past, just like in America, you kind of have to address it. You have to look at it. You're gonna have some friction about it, and then you're gonna move forward. Um, there's some uncomfortable truths that we need to talk about when it comes to
right.
colonization and indigenous people. I think that would be a great whole show to
Yeah,
go
that'd
on,
be a
because
good show.
I actually had a really good conversation with somebody the other day who was like 50% Native American or something like that. But I like I said, I feel like that's a different day's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
conversation,
yeah,
because
yeah.
if
Yeah.
we go down that rabbit hole,
We'll
we're
be
gonna be
here
there
again
for the rest
till
of the day.
till the cows come home. So
Yeah.
what I will say is this: I say, and if anybody's interested in that conversation, please let us know. Send us a DM if you want to be a part of that conversation. Always. One thing I do want to hit before we kind of transition and get out of here, man. Let's talk about these kids, man.
Yeah. So the video you sent me was very it's not the first time I've seen a video like that. It's not the first time I've heard that message stated by a member of the LGBTQ community. But I want to point something out. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about how men need to police men. Men need to police men. I have not seen a woman come out and say something like that we're coming after your kids. The last thing that I saw was, it was a drag queen. So that's a man dressed as a woman
Right,
coming after our kids. Um, Even a transsexual was a man transitioning to a woman saying they're coming after our kids, and now a gay man saying that they're coming after our kids. Um, I think what we're I think I don't think the problem is the idea of transgenderism. I don't think the idea of homosexuality is the problem. I think the main problem is weak men.
mm,
I think the main problem is weak men, because as I look at that, I've had several men in my life. Shit, that sounded like I had some partners.
Pause.
Hold on a second. No, No, some of my closest friends were gay men. One of the guys I used to work with at my ambulance company was a gay man. Great fucking guy. Ended up dying because an ambulance fell on him, which is a weird story, but we'll
Right.
tell that one day. Um, but one thing he never fucked with was kids.
Hmm.
And he was very quick to point out anything that he saw in that community that was unhealthy, not only for his community, but just for everybody else involved in general.
Right.
And I think that the LGBTQ community needs to police itself, because if you have people like that in your community and
Hmm.
you're supporting them and you're protecting them, and you come to a bunch of straight people, you're not going to fuck with their kids, man.
Right.
And we talk about this on the show all the time. If you fuck with kids, you don't get a pass.
Hmm.
You don't get a pass. There's no
Hmm.
there is no room. There's no celebrity. There's no country. There's
Hmm.
no group. You don't get a pass if you mess with kids.
Yeah.
And I don't. It's not. I can't call myself an ally. I can't. It's more along the lines of I just want to be left the fuck alone.
Right.
You can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't affect me or affect my ability to, live a life in pursuit of happiness. But if you are going to sit there on social media and tell the world that you are going to try to indoctrinate kids, I'm going to stop you.
Hmm.
And there's plenty of people that are going to stop
Right.
you. You're not strong enough.
Yeah.
You're not.
But and let me clarify for those who don't know that, I mean, obviously you've probably heard some of these conversations or arguments before, but for those who don't know, there was a video that surfaced of a LGBTQ community choir, men's choir, and they basically did a song. And they sang this song, and in the song they said, "We're coming after your kids, and it's only little bit by bit, and we're gonna convert them, and so on and so forth." And they go on. Now, to be honest with you, like I said, I can't put it like this. I can't confirm or deny whether that's satire or not, but that ain't something you play with,
No,
regardless.
no, I
Like
don't think it's
regardless
funny.
of
It's
whether
just like,
you're, yeah,
yeah, we don't play around with hot topics like that. We don't play around with rape. You know what I'm saying?
right,
Like, you don't get
right,
on here. We don't joke about raping women or
right,
kids
right,
or anybody for that matter.
right,
And you don't fucking get on social media and put something out to the world that says that you are going to indoctrinate
right,
kids to get to the next generation,
right. And we're
which
gonna bit by bit
which
convert
which kind
them, and
of opens up a door, because if you really want to talk about it, a lot of these universities, a lot of education, we talked about education in the past. Education is where you start to influence young adults.
right,
you know it's not that I'm so much worried about children in the sense of them, like, their opinions and shit don't really matter to me. The way they think about things and stuff like that is not as important as once that kid gets to high school, once that young woman or that young man gets to high school, and they start to formulate their own opinions, they start to formulate their disposition and how they view the world. That's when things become dangerous.
right,
And what they've done in the United States is they streamlined it from high school right into college.
right. Yeah, for sure. Just that's crazy, but not yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. And it's interesting because and here's the part that, like you mentioned earlier, about being able to question things,
Hmm.
right? The part that I think is really dangerous is the fact that it's not even so much that you're presenting the argument. It's not even so much that you're presenting the idea. The fact that I can't question it is the problem. The fact that you're saying that I have to agree with it. And if I don't agree with it, I'm somehow immoral. How if I don't agree with it, I'm somehow wrong. If I don't agree, like the reality is this is you have your life to live, you have your personal positions and decisions and all that kind of stuff. And I personally don't have to agree with it. That's okay. But when
Yeah.
you tell me that I have a right to go have drag shows and do lap dances on 5-year-olds, like that doesn't work for me. Okay. That's not how that works, because now what you're doing is you are effectively you're injecting, because think about this, bro. The reality is that if you go back in the past, the idea of being a drag queen, all that kind of stuff, that was an adult underground, thing. Like that was an adult underground thing, and now you're saying we're going to take adult entertainment and then we're going to take it into the middle schools and elementary schools and say that, oh well, this is just we're just introducing them to the real world. That's not the real world, though. That is a subset. That's like you wouldn't have strippers. Let's just be honest. Like you wouldn't have strippers doing a strip show. So like this has been something that's been bothering me. Like my thing is this. I think that you have every right to live however you want to live. I don't have to agree with the lifestyle. Right, you can do your thing, but I love you as a person. Like you as a person and your lifestyle, it's cool. Do your thing, man. Hey, but when you say that there is a well, there's a couple of things I've been thinking about, but like
Lay them out.
you would not allow for, like you wouldn't say strippers like, oh, we got a special elementary show, a special elementary show featuring Diamond and Sugar.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And they come in there stripping for kids. We'd have a problem. I mean, there would be an issue there, right? If so why is it that it's wrong there, but it's not wrong when you have men with leather fishnets and bulges and all this kind of stuff naked, doing lap dances for children. And we think, well, that's okay because we're just introducing them to, the real world. And think about this, why do you need to introduce them to that? Like, why is it why is that what needs to be introduced and not just, how about learning how to read and learning how to write, learning how to, function as a human being?
Introducing ideas like that to children is a very new idea. That is a new idea because they know that once you reach a certain age, your view can change, but the way you feel about things won't. All right. So, I'm 36 years old. The way I feel about 90% of the things in my life is not going to change. There are viewpoints that I, take into consideration as I meet new people and new experiences and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, how I feel is how I feel, and what I know is what I know. Now, you get somebody who's young, you get a 5-year-old, you get a 10-year-old, you get a 15-year-old, you can absolutely change everything that the entire way they view the world because they're malleable. You can sit there and you can mold them into what you want.
Right,
You know what I'm
right,
saying?
right,
So you can
right.
absolutely 100%. And the problem is nowadays with social media, with the internet, with everything, is you can reach children behind their parents' backs.
Right. And you made a good point, man. It just said it's called grooming. It's interesting because, like, I state this, man. I love people, bro. Like, I love people, dog. Like, people I disagree with, people I agree with, people I love people. Human beings are human beings.
Yeah.
I love them, straight up. You know what I'm saying? However, when a lifestyle decision begins to impact either I or begins to impact the next generation, that is a personal issue that I take seriously. And like I said, you already know I take these kids seriously, man. Like there is no greater frustration when I go into these classrooms and I talk to these kids and we're talking about talking about life, talking about the world, talking about relationships, and I have to have this whole conversation trying to dissect whether a person like these girls and these guys, they're had like I do an exercise where we have what's called battle of the sexes, right? And so I have the girls sit on one side and guys sit on the other side, and then we talk about gender roles and that kind of stuff, right? And we have that conversation about, okay, I ask the question like, who's supposed to be washing the dishes, right? And like they'll all go crazy. Oh, the girl's supposed to be doing it. Oh no, y'all can do it, and it becomes a really fun environment, and we have a real conversation about gender roles and household and families and all that kind of stuff. But then now I'm in this place where when I'm trying to do that, I have to navigate this road of, well, like I had a young lady once that she told me, well, I don't identify as a woman, or a male, and I'm just kind of like, okay, so where do
Are
I
you a
sit?
fucking dinosaur?
Right, and she said, where do I sit? I'm like, I mean, in the middle. I don't know. I don't. I like.
Well, I
I
mean,
like.
at a certain point, like you got to take the gloves off, even when it comes to kids,
Right.
because somebody's got to stand there and say that like this shit needs to stop. You know what I'm
So.
saying? The thing is like I can sit here and understand the argument for homosexuality. I can understand the argument for transsexualism, right? Where you
Right.
change from one gender to the other. Even transgenderism from one gender to the other, one and two. But when you're going to sit here and say, like, I don't identify as a male or a female, what do you fucking identify as? A dog? Well, you can go stay out in the fucking yard then, yeah? You know?
So well, here's the thing. There's a school right now that's having a civil suit. There was a civil suit going on where they had students that they were teaching sex education, but they did not include the students that identify as cats. And they put litter
Yeah.
boxes in like they had litter boxes in the bathroom, and had students that identify as cats, and they were not including them in the sexual education. So the thing about this is that the whole issue is that there are people who have real challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's people who have real challenges, there's real stuff going on in our head, right? There's real stuff going on in their minds and their bodies. But the reality is that when I talk to my students, I tell them, I say, listen, biology and gender, right? So let's talk about this. Like we have this conversation. I say, listen, your biological sex is male or female, and that doesn't change. Like you cannot, your biological sex is male and female. Like there's this big argument of like what you were assigned at, when you came out. It's like, no, it's not about assignment. It's like they look at what you were born with. They look at, okay, you got, like you said, you got what you got, something sticking out or sticking in, you know what I mean? And so, that's the reality. And so that's what identifies these two things. And so I think what we have now is we have this situation where once we get away from this idea of objectivity, right? Objective biology, like the objectivity of reality. You can't teach anything else.
Yeah. No,
I
I
mean,
like
you
what you said.
can't.
I like that term that you used. Being objective about reality, right? You
Objective
cannot be
reality.
objective about reality because reality is factual. It's not objective. It's not subjective.
Right.
It
Right.
is a fact because there
It
is
is
just
what
a
it is.
reality. A hole or a pole. Majestic, you need to settle down. You're being bad tonight,
Right.
right?
Did you
You're being
see?
bad.
So there was
You showed up late and you're being bad.
Did you see? There was a video. There was an interview done with a teacher. She was I can't remember what kind of teacher she was, but she was some type of teacher, and she was excuse me, and she was talking on I think CNN, doing an interview, and she was talking about gender and some other things that she teaches in her classroom. And like in her class, they don't use gender. They just identify, I guess, as like their names or whatever, something like that. And she was saying that the issue that she has with a lot of what they try to teach in the schools or what they try to say, the big issue is that she straight out said it. There is no such thing as objective reality. So that's the big issue. Like there's no such thing as objective reality and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, wait. So you have an educator who is standing here in front of these children saying that there is no such thing as objective reality. So how can I even trust what you're teaching in the first place? How can you tell me? How can you definitively say there is no objective reality or objective truth when you're saying an objective definitive statement that there is no objective reality? You know what I mean? That's the issue. You can't say to me definitively there is no objective reality when what you're saying is a definitive statement. You're making a definitive objective statement that is objectively true, that there is no objective truth. Like that in itself is an oxymoron. And that's one of the issues. That's why these kids are confused. That's why kids, think about it. We should be in education, man. We need to be building better humans. We need to teach people how to read, write, how to move forward, how to grow, how to be effective citizens in society, to pursue their dreams, to be confident, to be strong, to be all these things. But when we start getting into all this minutia and all this craziness from, like you're talking about, from kindergarten, they're teaching. I'm gonna tell you right now, and I have nothing against anybody. I love people. I say this all the time. But if I were to send if I had a 5-year-old daughter or a girl or boy or whatever, and the fact that I even said no, girl or boy or whatever. But anyway, if I have a child and I go into that kindergarten class and I see they're in there talking about masturbation and gender, sexual orientation and all that kind of stuff, we don't have a problem. There's going to be some conversations had that are not going to be pleasant, right? Because it's like, wait, what are we doing? Wait. My kid can't even read. And so yeah, man, that's a whole other thing that. But here's the thing. I say this, and I say this all the time. So obviously, when in the Bible, I think about this obviously because I come from that biblical perspective, and when I look at the Bible and I look at it when it says with God anything is possible, right?
Yep.
But then look at it from a flip perspective. Without God, anything is possible. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you have the standard, the foundation, anything is possible. You can reach any heights. But if you have no foundation, there is no limits to the depth that we can reach. There's no limits to the darkness that we can go. There's no limits to the confusion. There's no limit to the bottomless pit, the abyss that can come. You see what I'm saying? There's no limit
Well,
to
it's like
how
letting
far
them.
we can go.
It's like poisoning your children is what it is. When you get them young, and you get them confused young, and you get them thinking a certain way young, then they're going to think that way for a very long time.
Right,
It's like the psychology of trauma with children. Trauma as an adult is much different than trauma as a child,
right,
because as an
right,
adult, we can handle a lot more. You should be able to handle a lot more if you
right.
were conditioned younger to handle a lot more later on in life. But if you're a child and you experience trauma,